And I think we are recording.
Um,
Okay. Hi, I want to welcome everyone to the Ethical Will class. I'm Debbie Marion, and it's right now 11 a.m. on April 16th. And I'm also just going to take a minute to test to see if I can also share my screen with you. So let's see if this works. Share my screen. Let's see. So so maybe everybody can see that there's a lot of memes that are going around now. So you might be thinking that you're not even sure what day it is. Maybe it's April 94th, and then I like this meme about that we all look different when we have the video on the Zoom meeting, so we get our hair done, and then we start looking good. So that I also want to give you just a little bit of preview of what we're going to do, because I wanted to make sure this class just lasted an hour. Some people are going to be watching a recording of it, and so I'm going to try and move quickly. But of course, you can get the video, the recording if you'd like. You can do some, and you can do some writing in between. I hope you will do writing in between the other two classes. So I'm going to give you a sort of a quick speed through what's going to happen, so I can manage your expectations. So let's see if I can get this technically to work. So once again, I'm going to share my screen and go to. So here's the class description. I'm hoping everybody can see this. The dog is on the left and the description is on the right. So we're going to start with talking a little bit about what is an ethical will. And then we're going to talk a little bit about what it's going to look like as a final product. I always think it's helpful to kind of know where you're going when you're going somewhere. And to make it pretty easy and take out the intimidation factor, we're going to mostly be writing lists today, because lists aren't very intimidating. So we're going to write one list, and then we're going to write a second list, and then we're going to talk about 3 or 4 different examples, including the one that Betty Kotzen sent me from Stephen Wyndham Miller, as I call him, Uncle Stephen. And then we're going to talk a little bit about how you can write without worrying about writing the right thing by using Natalie Goldberg's rules for writing practice, which have had a big effect on my writing. I think we'll do a Misha Bera, thinking about others who might not be able to join us right now, or who are healing. I'm going to spend a couple minutes to talk about what you can do if you're stuck with your writing, and then we'll talk about your homework. So that's what we're going to be covering today. My background is as a writer and a writing coach, and I taught this class for the first time in 2005. And Betty Kotzen and Stu Simon, who's not on yet, both asked me at High Holiday Services if I would teach it again this year, and it took me about a second to say yes. So thank you very much for asking me, Betty, and thank you. At that time, I also did my own, but a lot changes in our lives in 15 years. So I'm gonna mute you all for now, if you don't mind. Mute. Okay. So a lot changes in 15 years, and I'm looking forward to maybe doing a new one, and maybe including both of them when I share them with people. So I wanted to so that's a little bit of the story. It was supposed to be a May class, and we moved it into up to April since we knew everybody would be available. But I want to just take now that I've muted you, I wanted to unmute everybody and ask if anybody has a question that they want to try to make sure that we cover during the next hour. Anything that you've been thinking about? Anything? Okay. All right. We will keep moving on. So first of all, I'm going to talk about an ethical will, about what is an ethical will. And at this point, I think so what I understand about an ethical will is you can look at it from a lot of different ways, as most things in Judaism. You can look at it as the way that Andrew Weil looks at it, which is that its main importance is that it gives the writer a way to look at their life. It gives the writer a gift of their spiritual health. And you can look at it as a way to say, I matter and you matter to me and the world. We all want to think that we matter. You could look at it as a way to inform your charitable and personal financial decisions in your last will and testament, thinking about what's important to you. And you can think of it as a way to transmit love to future generations. I mean, imagine if you had something from your grandfather, great-grandfather that was sending his love, or great-grandmother. I think it would just feel really good to read something like that. But when we talk about transmitting love, I do want to say that recently my daughter was telling me about a book called The 5 Languages of Love. And has anybody ever heard of that book before? Yes? Okay, good. So Karen, yeah. So I hadn't, but so I think it's kind of interesting to hear what the 5 languages of love are. So the 5 languages of love are words of affirmation, acts of service, receiving gifts, quality time, and physical touch. Again, it's words of affirmation. So I think you're great. Acts of service. I'd like to make dinner for you because I love you so much. Receiving gifts. Here's a little box from Tiffany's. It's turquoise, and I think you're going to like what's inside. Quality time. Let's go out and play ball together. And physical touch. Can you give me a hug? Well, not right now because we're all in our own home. But like when I think that was really helpful for me because it allowed me to think about my parents and the way they brought me up. I think that the way my parents showed love was with quality time and acts of service. So I think that gives us all a little bit of context about how we show our love to other people. All right, so that's my summary of an ethical will. I think there is a way. I just want you all to know there's a way to type something in the chat box at the bottom. If you have a computer and you put your cursor at the bottom, there's a chat, and you can type in comments if you have any questions at any point. And also there's another little circle that says reactions. So if there's any, all I see is like this and this. Let me ask Rabbi Josh, I know that you say to people to raise your hand, and I don't know if you have
Yeah,
them.
if you open the participants list,
Yeah.
and everybody can do this on their device. You open the participants list, and you should see a list of everybody. It's in the session with us. And underneath, it says invite, mute me, and raise hand. When I click raise hand, Debbie can see that I have that blue box at the top left hand corner of my screen,
Oh, okay.
and then I can lower it too, and uh, um, so that's an easy way to get Debbie's attention if you need her to stop, and you have a question or something to say or to add.
Okay, that sounds great. And Trudy, I just wanted to welcome you as well. I can't see you yet. I don't know if you're having any problems, but I can see that you're on, so welcome. All right, so, and looks like Marla is on now too, so welcome to Marla. Okay, so now we're going to talk for a couple minutes about what will the ethical will look like when it's done. One of the most common ways that people seem to put their ethical will together is as a letter. So you can write it as you would write a letter. You can write dear friends and family, to my friends. One person named Kim, and I can who did not have any family, said that she was going to send hers out with her holiday letter, which I thought was a pretty interesting idea. And I had never thought about that. She had written about that she's interested in, driven by the need to learn and nature, and she thinks it's really important that you take care of your health. So when I think about the final product, I have an ethical will that I wrote last time. It's about 3 single space pages. If I had more time, I probably would shorten it down. I'm thinking that if we can make it happen, that the best thing to do to get people to actually read and remember what we have might be something a little bit shorter. So something between 600 and 1200 words, which is about 2 single space pages. The example that I sent to you in the email that was from Stephen Windemiller, that was about 1200 words, and that seemed like it did it. But in general, like I don't think you need to worry about length at all. So I'm just saying if it seems like it might be hard for you to write something longer, then short is great. And if it seems like it might be hard for you to write something shorter, then long is great. So in general, whatever you have is going to be perfect. I think also I wanted to say that don't worry about it feeling like it's done. This is one of the things that always comes up for me personally when I write something. It never seems like it's done. There's always another word that I can change. But at some point, you're just going to say, and that point may be just at the end of the 3rd class. You might just say, you know what? I spent a few weeks on this. I'm going to move on with my life. I think it's done. So I think it's one of these things that we're going to see if we can get it pretty quickly done so that it doesn't hang on, because let's face it, I think our values are not going to change that much. And so that's my goal. Okay, so we are going to start. Does everybody have something to write with? Okay, great. All right, so I've been thinking about this, and I think we're going to start with writing some lists, because even on the example that Betty sent me, Rabbi Stephen Windemiller's, it kind of came down to, I made it into a list of 10. And, you know, we're all kind of used to thinking about 10 commandments, and it's not like we're necessarily commanding anybody to do something, but a list of 10 is like a nice number. So we're going to start with seeing if we can write a couple lists. So the other thing I've been thinking about is that it seems as though most things that we've learned, either we learned it from our parents or we learned it from someone who's not our parents, as a teacher, a mentor, a friend, a loved one. So I want you to start by just writing a list of 5 things you've learned from your parents that are part of your life right now. Something that you could, something that 5 things that you've learned from your parents that are part of your life right now. Ready? Begin. And if you come up with 5 and you end up, we're going to write for a few minutes more on this. If you have a few more, don't stop. Keep going. Okay, so did everybody get something in the list? Raise your hand if you got going on your list, right? Just raise your hand if you're able to get a list to get started. Great, awesome. So now we're gonna keep going in the list vein. This next list is gonna be, as you may have guessed, things that you didn't learn from your parents. So it could be something you learned from your husband or from your wife. It could be something you learned by just observing people. It could be something that you learned from a mentor, or maybe it was something that your parents did and you decided you didn't like it and you just wanted to do the exact opposite. So a list of something that you didn't necessarily learn from watching your parents do it, but you still think it's some value or some actions that are important to you. So we'll spend another 5 minutes or so on that list. So ready, begin.
Debbie,
Yes,
are we going to share these at all or not?
we'll see how much time we have
Okay,
on that. Thank you for asking.
sure.
Would you like to leave some time for that if we have some time?
Yeah, I mean, not me personally, but I wondered if other people would.
Okay. All
Okay,
right.
I'm
Well,
gonna unmute me now. I mean, I'm gonna mute me again.
okay.
Thanks.
Okay, so that's the start. Everybody has a great start to their ethical will not right now. It's not even 11:30 and you all have a good list. So I've unmuted everybody and I'm wondering if everybody just wants to share one thing totally optional from their list. And I think that I always find the easiest way to do this is just for me to call on people because everybody's in a different order. So, so if you don't want to, you could say pass. But I personally think it would be really interesting to hear just the first thing on everybody's list because I think the first thing is always. So the first thing on my list was, let's see if I can. First thing on my list was being Jewish. Bob, do you want to share?
Sure. So this is from the list of things that I learned from my parents.
Or either list.
Oh, okay. Well, the first thing on my list that I learned from my parents was the value of honesty.
Oh, nice. Betty?
One of the most important things in my daily life is that my parents taught us to plan for tomorrow, but celebrate today. And it has been pervasive in my life.
Nice. Mona?
Well, the first thing I thought of was how important learning was and to never stop learning. My mom was a teacher and she never stopped teaching, even as she had Alzheimer's disease in the assisted living. She always thought she was a teacher and she always had a little class of friends around her. So
Great. Let's see. Grace?
So also the thing that my parents taught me was honesty. And I guess the other thing is to continue to study hard and work towards goals.
Great. Awesome. Beth?
My parents always taught me the value of family, to acknowledge them and to respect them.
Great. Miriam?
Follow your dreams.
Nice. Alita?
Having had abusive parents, mostly I could say what I learned was what not to do.
Okay. So you can take anything from your lists.
Well, how not to be hypocritical. They were very hypocritical people, jealous of other folks, how not to be jealous of other folks. I mean, these were things I learned maybe beginning in high school.
Good.
I wasn't going to mention anything, so I think it's a different situation than many people.
Yeah, but like I said, we do learn. And my mother was a very nervous person, so I learned how to meditate. It really helped.
Yeah, I learned how to
Mitch?
run away. I learned how to run
Mhm.
away.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
The very first was the importance of philanthropic, efforts, just to give away, help the community.
Mhm. Karen?
My dad was an accountant and a lawyer, and I learned from my father a strong work ethic. He owned 3 accountant practices. He would work from 7 a.m. to midnight. And when I first got married, I had 3 jobs and my brother had 2. And he'd always say, yep, that's the Ludmer work ethic.
Great, thank you. Kathy?
The first thing on my list, similar to Midge, was community service, the importance of community service. Both my parents were very involved in helping others.
Thanks, Kathy. Great. Mark?
I think the thing that it stays with me, I guess maybe every second of every day, is to basically to treat everybody equally. Sort of a guiding principle. But more pragmatically, and I think about parents, so something I learned from my mother and my father that complemented each other is my mother taught me how to stay out of trouble, and my father taught me how to get out of trouble. So that was good to have 2 parents.
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Annie?
Responsibility for / obligation to family and friends.
Mhm.
That would have been nice.
Thank you. Trudy?
I learned through not having, and this was that the most important thing was health. That was highly stressed in my family because as we see how important health is, it certainly stands right now. Very important.
To try and stay healthy.
Yes, that was it, and make sure that we try everything we can. Once we have health, we can do everything else.
Thank you. So, and PF, you're listed as PF. I'm sorry, we haven't met before. What's your first name?
Patricia, I'll fix it.
Patricia. Oh, I think we might be Facebook friends, actually. Are you a librarian?
I am.
Oh, okay.
Kind of fits with one of the things I learned from my parents was books and learning. We just had so many books.
Yeah, you can see.
Oh, that's Harvard's library behind me. That's not mine.
Oh,
Not that organized.
well, it was very impressive.
Thank you.
You have to do with that, yes.
Lovely.
Thank you, Patricia. Rabbi Josh.
First thing on my list is to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I learned that too. I think a lot of us did. Well, great. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. Those are some great examples. So would you guys mind if you all smile and I take a group photo for a second? The new class group photo. Excellent. Thank you. Okay, so moving on. So everybody should have everybody has at least 5. If you have 5, raise your hand in your between your 2 lists. Okay. If you have who has maybe 10 between their 2 lists? Okay, and so about half of us, and some people have more than 10. Who has more than 10? Okay, so any number is great, but I think it's great to at least have a list of 5 to 10 for starters. Okay, so now let's talk about what are we going to do with these lists? Well, I'm going to share my screen with you right now so you can see what I'm looking at. I'm looking at this list right here on the right. You can see the doggies on the left. And let me see that. So there are a number of ways that we can think about these lists. So it could be 10 things that you want people to do, such as maybe one of them is, say, writing thank you notes, or things that you want people to think or feel. So, for example, I'm just going to click on Uncle Stephen Windemuller here, and you should be able now to see this is the Jewish philanthropy blog that Betty Kotzen shared with me, and I shared with all of you earlier, by Stephen Windemuller. And this was his, and I was able to actually boil this down to, this is really 10 things that he's saying he thinks are good things to do. So you can see 4 of them are here in a bulleted list. You know, figure out who and what is important to you, take risks, ask the tough questions, never compromise on what you view as being just and truthful. So that was his way of doing it. Or you could just tell, if you don't feel like you actually want to sort of tell people what you think they should do or feel, you could just tell them, here's number 2, you could just tell them what you personally value. So for example, you might say, you know, I think it's really, I've always tried to have an attitude of gratitude. Or like for me, in my ethical will, the last one that I wrote, one of the first things I wrote about what I personally valued was freedom, and also being able to be inquisitive. So you could start by your ethical will by saying, I would like to be remembered as. And when I have Beatrice 100 here, that's because in the list of ethical wills, and let me go, and I'll show you in a minute, there was one woman who wrote her ethical will and she was 100 years old, and that was how she started hers. So, and here's a few other ways that you could sort of look at your list. You could say, these people or events have changed me and they have affected me. So for example, you might look at one of your values, and when you start to write a little bit more about it, you want to kind of flesh it out and make it into a story, of course. So you might say, you know, I've always learned to be honest, and my grandfather taught me how to be honest by when I went to his candy store. I watched how once he gave somebody the wrong change, and he went out and he walked 2 miles to give them back the correct one. So you know, because we all remember stories. You know, that I think it's no accident that the Torah, the Bible, is all in stories. So it's good if you can think of, you know, anecdotes to go with your list. Or you can look at it the way Barry did it, and I think probably this Barry in this list is Barry Baines, who wrote this book. I'll show it to you in a minute. The book about writing your ethical will. You know, you could say, write a list of what you've learned and how you learned it. So he wrote that having a sense of humor is always important.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to show you Barry's, and this was also on the list of ethical wills. I sent you 2 links when I sent you the last email. There are a bunch of them here. So he starts out by saying, to my family, in reading my ethical will, I hope you will find very few surprises. And then he goes on to talk, say having a sense of humor is very important. It's impossible to be successful in everything you try to do. So this is his advice, and you can go back and read his advice. Okay, so let me go back to my. You can write a list of things in life that you are proud of and that you've done. And if you really want to, you could even add a list of regrets, because it's possible this is going to be read when you're gone, and you might get a chance to kind of feel better about it now by putting your regrets there. So I'm going to show you this One Ethical Will by Don that I thought was really well organized in terms of being. His name is Don Schmitz. He has purpose, then he had an introduction, and he had a few experiences as a child. He has this one where he met Mary, Taffy and the Fair, and marbles. He just had 3 experiences. Then he had a list of things that he values. And look at his list. It's just great. He has like 20 things there that he values: getting my college degree, having a strong faith, and so forth. Then he had things that I believe in, and he makes them all pretty succinct. Everything gets a few lines. And then he has a list of things that he's learned.
Wow.
People do change. Have your children when you're young. And then he has his list of things that have had a big impact on his life, and wishes for the future and conclusion. So that, I think he did a great succinct job on that. So let's see. And last but not least, in my list of how you might flesh out your list, that you would also, if you wanted to, add any secrets that you want people to know. Now, it depends on how you're going to share your list. If you put it in your last will and testament, you could say, remember 2020, and nobody could find the afikoman? I'll tell you where it is. Or you could have a recipe that you refuse to give anybody for the whole, like my grandmother always said, no, I'm not going to tell you how to make the apple cake. I'll just make it for you, this is kind of something I've always thought about with my mom, and I could never actually ask her for it, but if you're the type of person like I am, who really believes there's a good chance that you could talk to someone like Rebecca Rosen, who can contact you on the other side and wants to give some sort of code that it really is you. If you wanted to, you could put the code in there that, I'm just, when you think of me, always think of, I don't know, Levi jeans, or whatever. I think that, so you don't have to have secrets in there, but it might kind of amuse you, and I think these are great to be amused by if possible. So those are the ways that you can flesh out your list. You have, of course, you can add to them in any way, but those are different ways that I see this basic list being expanded in different ways. So now let's talk a little bit about writing, because writing can be intimidating. I got into, one of the ways I've actually, even though I was a childhood writer, and I've recently actually finished a memoir about that. And in fact, I wanted to show you a poem that I wrote as a childhood writer that really inspired me to come up with, let's see if I have it. This poem inspired me to come up with the idea that a lot of what we really want to share is something we've learned when we were young. And I wrote this poem, life is a beautiful thing, so short are its years. The month flies so quickly by, too short to be wasted by tears. Everything has its beginning, everything has its end. Remember that the wrongs you do are easier to do than mend. Always make good use of your time, use it wisely and see. You'll have much more fun in life and live it more happily. Always try to do your best. You'll see that when you try, everything will be worthwhile. The time will always fly. Well, I wrote that when I was 11. So, you know, that's what made me realize that a lot of what we think of is we learned as children. So let's just talk about how, but writing can be intimidating because we also learn as children that we're a little nervous about getting an A. So everybody knows that your brain works. Everybody knows that it's kind of hard to not have thoughts. So what happens when we get stuck, when the words don't come from the brain down through the arm to the hand that's holding the pen? Well, I think what happens is that we all have an editor in us, and our editor has been groomed as we worry about A's, and the editor probably lives around your elbow. And the editor says to you, don't do that, don't write that, that's silly. Nobody's going to want to hear that. It's not a good thought. Maybe you can think of something better. Why don't you go take a nap? The editor says a lot of things. My editor used to really tell me to go to sleep all the time. So in order to tell and editors aren't bad, but we don't really want editors right now. We just want to write. So in order to get the editor to go away, I became a person who really follows what Natalie Goldberg says. She's written a number of books on writing. One of them is Writing Down the Bones. I've gone to many sessions with her. And what she says is, here's Natalie Goldberg's writing rules. She says, set a time that you're going to write for like 10 minutes. 10 minutes is a great amount of time to write. Set a timer on your phone. You can write about 250 words if you go fast. And so think of a topic, and everybody has a topic because you all have a list. Keep your hand moving. Don't cross out. Don't worry about spelling, punctuation, or grammar. Lose control. Don't be logical. Don't even have to stay on the topic. You can let your brain go where it will and go for the jugular. Anything that seems like it's scary probably has a lot of energy to you. And the most important thing, feel free to write the worst junk in America. Don't judge it, just write it. And if you've ever tried, or if you've never tried this technique, try it. It's really liberating, I think. So that's how I have written a lot and learned to not worry so much about what's going on the page. We'll edit it later, but you don't need to worry about that now. Okay?
Debbie,
Yes,
can you send us that list?
Absolutely.
Great.
Absolutely. Okay. So I'd like to, we're doing pretty good with time. We're pretty much on time. I'd like to, does anybody have any other questions right now?
Debbie, can you send us that, the last one you read, the very last one?
Yes.
Where he had used that format of purpose, introduction.
Sure.
Value.
Yes.
I like that setup.
Yeah. I will send you this document, and then you can just click on it and you'll go. That was Don.
Yeah, Don.
And I'll send that to you. Sure.
Yeah, thanks.
Sure. Good. Any other questions? Yes. You, sorry, wait, you're muted. Let's see. Do I unmute you?
Wait, here it is.
Okay.
Can you give us the link for how we can read the recording? Because I would like to go over it again.
Okay. Show you how, or should I just send you? I'll just send
Just
you the
send me the
link.
link.
Yeah.
Also,
Okay.
were you able to read in the chat what I posted?
Yes.
posted.
Let's see. Karen Googled the 5 languages of love, and she said choose the PDF. The author Gary Chapman highlights the book.
Then
Right.
there's the second one that I Googled, the 5 languages of love, free audio, and then I got 15 YouTubes.
Oh wow. Yeah, and there's also Wikipedia on the 5 languages of love, which is how I found it, because I didn't see your second one. So that's good. We'll look for the 5.
The other one was the YouTubes.
Okay, good. All right, we'll do that. Absolutely. Good. Thank you. Anything else? Okay. So send a note, and the request was send my notes, and also the second one was send the recording. Okay. So I would like to, yes.
Or Don, was it Don's?
Yeah, it was Don.
Right.
Was the one that was really nicely organized.
Gotcha.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
okay.
I'm going to unmute us all, and I thought I did have the Mishabera words up here, and I thought it would be good to here we go. I don't know if you can see this. Let me copy and paste the Mishabera to our notes, and I thought it might be good to just take a minute to just sing a Mishabera in thinking about those who can't be with us right now. So let's see. Can everybody see this on my screen?
No.
I think you're sharing your screen yet.
Oh, let me see. Let me share my screen. Share my screen. Share. Okay. It's right here in the lower right-hand corner. Everybody see it?
Yeah.
All right. So Annie and Josh, Bob.
Well, I'm going to actually suggest that we go back to the muting, and that only one of us lead it. It's it's very hard to sing on Zoom.
Good suggestion. All right, let's I guess that means I'm going to be, hold on, let me go back to okay. So I'm going to mute everybody. Annie Rose, would you mind if I, Josh, can I ask Annie to? Annie, would you mind doing us the honor of singing the Mishabera, Deb Friedman's version, and let me unmute you.
I unmuted me. Thank
good.
you.
Thank you.
Mishabera Avotenu Mekor habracha leimotenu. May the source of strength who bless the ones before us help us find the courage to make our lives a blessing, and let us say, Amen. Misheberach imotenu Mekor habracha lavotenu. Bless those in need of healing with refuah shlema, a renewal of body, a renewal of spirit, and let us say, Amen.
Thank you, Annie.
Thanks.
All right, so I'm going to share my screen again, and we're going and welcome, Stu. I will. We're at 11 o'clock. We're not going to go off the air, as they say. We're gonna all. Anybody can hang around until. I mean, at 12 o'clock. Sorry, and Stu, if you want to hang around, I'll give you an update, and I'm also going to be sending the and some of the information about what we talked about and the recording. So even though you signed on late, you're certainly not going to miss it. So to finish up this wonderful class, and I do want to thank you all for coming. Then it's the same time next week. It's the same Zoom link as well. So we're going to do an hour next week for let's talk about a couple minutes for what to do if you're stuck. If you're finding like you're stuck and you can't get you have no ideas, here's a bunch of options for you. You could look around your room and see what you have in your room that might make you think of something. For example, because usually people have things on their walls and on their desks that are important to you, and they might symbolize something. You could think about your life in stages or in ages. About maybe think about yourself in elementary school, think about yourself in junior high school, in college, getting married, having children, or whatever your life stages are. And look at your life that way. You might think about the people in your life. You might just start going through people and think about who do I think of first? You might, there's an ethical will workbook that I have that is kind of like a big menu. Like it's a long list of things that you might want to put in there. I've been kind of reluctant to share it because I think it's much more fun and interesting to come up with your own list. But if you are stuck, ask me, and I would be happy to share this list of possibilities with you that will really make it much. It's like a big menu of what you would put in an ethical will. And I also have. Recently, I think I may have mentioned to you as I finished a memoir, and the way I wrote it was I used something called Storyworth.com, which was from Sarah. I ended up over a year writing over a 300-page book just based upon these prompts. So there are a lot of just basic writing prompts that I would be happy to share with you that are about all different things in your life, not just your values, that I'd be happy to talk about if you're interested. So those are all different options. So let's talk about your homework for next time. The homework is bring a page or two for next time. Bring a page or two. If I think it's great to write things by hand. You don't have to. You can write it on the computer. Sometimes I write by hand. Sometimes I write on the computer. But I think for next time it would be a lot easier if you bring it typed, and then we'll be talking a little bit about how you can play around with it, how you can strengthen it. And absolutely, I'll be happy to have some more questions for next time. So that is 12:02, and we are pretty close to time. So any I'm going to unmute everybody and see any questions that I didn't handle so far?
The page or two that you want us to bring are based on those 2 lists that we've made.
Yes, but you can make it whatever you want.
Okay.
You could say, oh, that was a good start, but I'm just going to put that aside and I'm just going to start writing a letter.
Okay.
And leave it at that. So whatever you want, just bring a page or 2. That's typed in, and if you can look at it digitally on your device, whether if you can have the Zoom on one side and type on the other, however you can do it. Or the other thing you can do, the other thing that works really well and that I've done is print it out double spaced. And then that's also a good thing to do. So
would you want us to email it to you so that you know what's going on before we come on?
No, I don't want to put that stress on you or on me to read it. I think these are, but if you have any questions,
okay,
I would love to be able to be responsive to your questions, but nope. So good. Any other questions?
I just wanted to say thank you for this.
Yes.
Because I can't wait to get to this list and start typing.
So did we do what you were all anticipating would happen?
It was more than what I anticipated.
Yay.
Excellent.
Yes, Debbie, thank you. This is
you-
Lida. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Debbie.
All right.
Do I just,
Nice to
Get to
see you
work.
all.
thank you.
Get to
I
work.
can't wait to see you next Thursday.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No,
All right. Stay well, everyone.
Bye. Thanks, Deb.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey Deb, just add me to your email list of this. I don't know if you did before because I didn't get your link last night.
Yeah. I think.
Whatever,
yeah,
just
you're
add
on my-
me so that I can get your.
You're on my list. I think you're on my list. I got you.
Okay.
Right. Yeah.
Got it. Great job. Love
That's
you.
great. Who was it who had brought PF Anderson? Was it any of you guys? No? Okay. One of you had. I think I know her on Facebook. I'll find her. Great. So Stu, welcome. Good to see you.
Deb, my apologies for having been obstructed to joining you at the start. I'm very embarrassed about that.
Oh my gosh. Don't be embarrassed for a second.
I was so gratified though listening to the positive feedback you were just receiving. That's wonderful. Hey, listen,
Well-
I don't want to, this is unfair of me to take more time of yours, but if there's anything you're sending out to the group as far as lists of thought starters, I'm sure you'll just include me on it.
Yeah.
And how about if I'll just ask you questions if I have any by email. How's that?
Okay. That's great. I'm going to send notes to people and I'll send the recording. So between that, you can just watch the whole spiel again and do it.
Oh, wonderful. You
Right?
made a recording of the whole Zoom session.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So
I have to
are-
learn how to do that actually, so thanks.
Oh, you're welcome.
So are the notes the typed things you were working from?
Yes.
Great. That
Yes.
would be very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. I'll say goodbye now, Deb.
All
Thanks
right.
so much.
Nice to
Thank
see you.
you.
Nice to see you. Bye-bye.